Okay, so in this video, I'm going to talk about how to do that movie look that you see on Flickr and other photo sharing sites. And what I mean here is processing a regular image to look as if it's a frame from a movie. Now, there's really two parts to this effect. First, there's a kind of greenish, blue, greeny, movie-looking color treatment, and on top of that, a cinematic widescreen crop inside a letterbox. All right, let's get into this. This is a photo of a street in Tokyo, Japan. I shot this a couple weeks ago when I was out with some friends. We spent, I don't know, 3, 4 hours just wandering the streets, doing some street photography, doing some street portraits. Had a really good time. So I'm going to take this picture and I'm going to try to process it into an effect that looks like a frame from a movie. Now this image, at least the way it came out of the camera, it's not really a very interesting photo. And that's kind of why I've chosen it for this example, because I'm going to show how you can take a rather mundane image and add interest by giving it that movie effect. The first thing I need to do, I think, is fix the exposure. This overall image is really just too dark. So I'll start by pulling up my shadows slider until I get something that looks pretty good. And I'll also increase my overall exposure, not too much. That looks a little bit better. Next thing I'll do is increase the clarity to bring out a little bit more of that mid-tone contrast. And I think these really bright city lights here are a little bit too much, so I'm going to pull down the highlights just a little bit, not too much there. I think that's pretty good in terms of overall exposure. The next thing is to try to achieve a bluish green movie tint. I don't really know why, but a lot of movies just have that blue-green tint, and we're so used to seeing it, we just sort of accept it. And just adding that color treatment will take us a long way towards making this regular image look like a scene from a movie. So I'll take my white balance slider and I'll slide it down until the image starts to look really bluish. And that's pretty good right there. The next thing is to grab the tint slider and pull this down until I get a nice green tinge to the image. That's pretty good. Maybe I'll go a little bit further on the blue here, a little bit more into the bluish tone. And that's about what I'm looking for. The next thing, I think I'll just sharpen the image just a little bit. And now we'll just add some green. Movies are typically sometimes grainy, especially night scenes like this. So I'll just choose the Lightroom Heavy Grain preset. Now this is really grainy, it's really too much, but I've chosen it because I know that this video is going to be compressed and on the web, and I want you to at least be able to see the grainy effect that I've added here. Well, this is pretty good, I think, for the grain and the color treatment. The next thing is to crop this into a widescreen cinematic crop. According to Wikipedia, the most common aspect ratios used for movies are 1.85 to 1 and the super wide, super awesome 2.39 to 1. I'm going to go with 2.39 to 1 for my example here, really just because I saw The Dark Knight Rises in Tokyo a couple weeks ago and it was this super wide, awesome 2.39 to 1 aspect ratio, and I was just really impressed at how that looked on the big screen. So 2.39 to 1 it is for our example. Back in Lightroom, I open my crop tool with keyboard shortcut R. Now I've already said I'm going to use a 2.39 aspect ratio for this crop. That's 2.39 to 1. So how do I do that in Lightroom? Well, over here next to the aspect section of the crop, click your pull down menu and choose Enter Custom. Here it's simple. We just do 2.39, that's 9, to 1. And it gives us this crop rectangle at that aspect ratio. Drag it to somewhere that looks good, and I guess right about there is okay, and then hit enter, and you're done. Now one thing I want to point out here while we're talking about the crop tool is Lightroom remembers the previous custom crops you've done. So you can see here I have 2.39 to 1, 16 by 9, 16 by 10, and some other aspect ratios as my custom choices in Lightroom. This is really convenient because once you've entered that manually once, you can just choose it from the list here in the future. Okay, now that we have our widescreen 2.39 to 1 crop on this image, the next thing to do is jump into Photoshop and add the letterbox. Now letterbox is those black bars above and below the image that will change the aspect ratio to something else. I'm going to letterbox this image to 4:3 aspect ratio, which is the old school TV set. So I'll hit Command E, that would be Control E if you're on Windows, to open Photoshop and open this image for editing in Photoshop. Okay, now that I have my image in Photoshop, all that I need to do is change the canvas size so that my aspect ratio goes from this widescreen 2.39:1 to a 4:3 aspect ratio. I choose 4:3, as I say, because that's the old television set aspect ratio, and that's going to give me something that looks pretty realistic. So to get to the canvas size settings, I just go to Image, Canvas Size. Let's look at this in pixels. And now I need to think, okay, what should my new canvas size be? Well, I know that my width will stay the same, and I only need to change my height. The canvas extension color should be black, because that's going to give me the black letterbox bars that I'm looking for. The question here then is, how do I figure out what the new height should be? So here's a table I put together that shows you how to take some common widescreen aspect ratios and letterbox them to 4:3. Now we have a 2.39:1 aspect ratio image. We want to make that 4:3, so all we need to do is go to 179.25 on our canvas height. At the end of the movie, I'll give you a link where you can download this file as well. Let's go back to Photoshop. So back in Photoshop, we know that we need to change our canvas height to 179.25%. So in the height field here, I'll change to percent, and I just put 179.25. Make sure I'm centered, make sure my canvas extension color is black, and click OK. And that's it. We're done. Well, thanks for watching all the way to the end. I'd like to close with just a few final tips that can help you automate parts of this post-processing workflow. I'm all about automation, I'm all about saving time, I'm all about productivity. So here's a couple things to think about. First, if you shoot a lot of photography in the same sort of lighting scenario, you could create a Lightroom develop preset with the correct white balance and tint to give you the movie look or whatever look that you're trying to achieve for that particular lighting scenario, and that would give you a good starting point. Another thing you could do is create a Photoshop action to automate the canvas size change. And I've actually done this already. You can download my Photoshop actions from the website that's right here, and also you can download the aspect ratio cheat sheet that I've created that will show you how to letterbox some standard widescreen aspect ratios to 4:3. Well, thanks. I hope this was helpful. As always, give me your feedback in the comments. I'm happy to hear what you think. Thanks, everyone.